Per usual, living on this channel for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. Let's take a look at Bitcoin miners today in isolation. Haven't done a Bitcoin miner video in over a year. The last one, August 2024. A lot has changed since August 2024. Namely, a lot of Bitcoin miners don't really mine Bitcoin so much anymore. They are focused on where the money is, which is in AI, data centers, HPC. Here's an article from Wired just the other day. Anybody who's been paying attention for half a minute knows that the AI CapEx boom has meant a need and a desire for these AI data centers, and Bitcoin miners already have the power contracts. They already have the land. They already have the facilities. They don't necessarily have the ASIC equivalent, but many of them have acquired that, or they are borrowing, renting, whatever, to get their hands into the AI game. So let's take a look at some on-chain data, and then we'll look at price charts in the back half. And what you'd expect here is hash rate down, some distress probably for miners who are still holding or mining BTC. And I'd expect the miners that haven't pivoted to AI to look the worst. And spoiler alert, they do, namely Mara, which is the last chart of this video. If you are not participating actively in a highly profitable pivot, then the market's going to punish you if the Bitcoin side of things is not helping push you higher. And to me, Mara is kind of doing everything the wrong way. Looking at hash rate's still okay. This isn't a 30-day, it's a 7-day hash rate. But hash rate has pretty much just been up and to the right since 2022. And this is through the bear market. So miners didn't even get a reprieve in the bear market with hash rate. Hash rate just kept going up and keeps going up. The question I have for hash rate now is, in this bear market, are we going to see, assuming it is a bear market or we get a bear market, are we going to see hash rate come off a lot? If we do, that indicates miner distress. There's been a bunch of miner distress just locally here over the past month. I would say this does correlate decently well with price, because if miners are in stress, they are more likely than not selling rather than holding. If they're selling, that's additional sell pressure. Miners are natural sellers. They convert electricity, ASICs, land, data centers into BTC, and then they have to pay bills. Unless they can pay in BTC, they have to sell it. So if we are truly bearish and miners are in a lot of trouble, you'd expect this to roll over. Now, what's interesting is that even with all the AI stuff, hash rate's still just seemingly exponentially going higher. So if you're bullish, you want to see hash rate continue to push higher. Same thing with difficulty. Difficulty is pretty volatile, but this will adjust every, 1,052 blocks or something. And if difficulty has significant downward adjustments, that correlates pretty well with bearishness in price generally. You can even see in 2022, hash rate difficulty came off a bit at the bottom here. So for a bearish capitulation, for a consolidation ending type thing, you want to see difficulty readjust higher after an extended period of flat or down. We don't really have that yet. There's no obvious difficulty spike down yet. I would love to see some massive max difficulty down spikes, which is negative 25%. You really never want, if you're looking for something, you never want this wishy-washy, oh, maybe, I don't know, right? You want obvious. Obvious would be a massive down spike in difficulty. So far, so good. Difficulty hasn't really gone too far. If we look at hash price, though, this is the value of 1 terahash per second per day, and this continues to decline. Now you can see the micro adjustments bullishly as BTC price goes up, but there again hasn't really been a reprieve here for miners in quite some time. So just as miners are making less and less and less per unit, they have this opportunity to pivot to AI, which is why most of them have already done so. It's a no-brainer. If you're able to do that as a business, it's just a much better place to be at the moment. That might not be a forever thing, but that's where miners are currently. Another actionable indicator that I really like is hash price. And you can just see here on the chart, historically, even on backtesting, when you have a 30-60-day moving average cross bearish on hash rate, typically not bullish for price. Price can go up through that. Price can stay flat through that. But more likely than not, it represents a very challenging time for price. This may be one example where that was less of a case, but even then, it's not something you want to see if you're bullish. So looking at this today, it makes sense to me. Hash rate's coming off with price. That makes total sense. makes sense to me that we have a bear cross here on the hash ribbons. Something to watch going forward. If and when we bottom, let's say this is a bear flag and we don't bottom till the 70s or the 60s, whatever. What you want to watch for is a recovery in hash price. And even then, we look at just July, we didn't go anywhere after that. Hash kept going up and selling kept going. A lot of this was what? It was Galaxy, it was China, it was all sorts of stuff. So nothing's perfect, no indicator's perfect, but what you do want to see, like you did in 2018, is a recovery, a consolidation of hash rate to represent just sentiment for miners, that miners are done being in distress. We also have miner revenue, which post-halving historically has lifted off a little bit. 2017, a major extreme as there were some games being played with pricing. 2024, there was some ordinals, runes stuff. You don't hear about that anymore. All that stuff has just sort of died, right? So miners aren't really making anything on fees. The network itself is super, super cheap. And these are kind of functions of themselves in that if price takes off, you tend to see both higher transaction fees and more transactions. Miners do better because they're collecting more, and then miner equities do better. So we haven't seen that, right? This hasn't taken off all year. All year mining revenues just on fees have been absolutely flat. And if we look at transaction fees as a percentage of total revenue, again, this is nothing. This is not what you want to see in a bull period. And many detractors of Bitcoin will say, well, we got to figure something out, or they won't figure something out, and the network's going to collapse because eventually there isn't going to be a block reward. I'm not quite there personally. I think we'll figure it out. We'll do just fine, just because there's always going to be somebody mining something somewhere, and the network's going to adjust. Difficulty is going to adjust. It's going to adjust down based on hash rate, based on where the miners are and what electricity costs they have. Another one we can look at is Puel. This does not look like miners are fat and happy. Historically, again, what have we seen in market tops? We've seen this Puel multiple reach 3.5-ish. And somebody, of course, is going to draw a diagonal line here as they do in all these and say, there's a diminishing return here. I'm not going to disagree. It's also kind of a rising diag here. But in any event, I can't say that miners are doing great here. They're certainly not fat and happy. They never really got to the fat and happy stage. They are neutral. Puel of 1 is just where you'd expect it to be. They're not fat and happy. They're not in distress. Really not much going on here for the miners generally. Something else to consider here on miners is who is holding a ton of BTC. That's the first thing. Is that good or bad based on trend recently? Mara trying to be MSTR. Good luck on that, right? If we're in a bear market. So the first thing is identifying who owns the BTC. The second thing is trying to figure out, okay, are they going to sell? Mara more likely to sell than Strategy. All the miners collectively are more likely to sell than Strategy. Collectively, the miners do not equal anything close to MSTR. So MSTR on that front is something more important to pay attention to. But when you're trading this stuff on the equity side and Mara continues to hold on to a sinking ship, which for them may be a good decision in the long run, I don't know. I wouldn't expect the equity to act bullishly if BTC is not bullish, if they are not participating in AI data center stuff. What have you done for me lately is the question that everyone's asking. Which miners have done best? The ones that have pivoted. End of story. It's no contest. Something that's not even on this list, IREN, they sell everything. CleanSpark used to sell everything. Now they're holding a bunch of BTC. We'll take a look at that. But the miners and traders need to realize all this stuff is cyclical, obviously, and has been cyclical. And if you aren't hopping onto the narrative or participating in revenue generation, you certainly cannot expect to keep up with competitors or do better than competitors. And if we look at Mara, this is their BTC balance sheet in orange here, up from 44,000 to 52,000, 53,000. They were taking debt. I think there's some sort of, again, MSTR-like dynamic with issuing shares, blah, blah, blah. In a bear market, that's probably not going to serve them well, and probably worth knowing that, hey, this is what they've done and or are doing. And if BTC does continue to be bearish, can't expect Mara to do well. Riot, same deal. They added a ton at the end of the year. Are any of these companies going to add a bunch this year? Looks like they're kind of hodling their BTC, but that hasn't necessarily gone amazingly for them throughout 2025. Hut 8 also holding some BTC. Okay, good to know. CleanSpark looks like they've just been reporting kind of the monthly numbers as it looks like they're holding. I haven't seen any reports recently for any of the miners specifically. I haven't really looked, but worth knowing, hey, these guys since 24 have been holding. Do they become net sellers in 26? That's on aggregate, something to pay attention to. And then the next question is, okay, are they going to sell everything? Are they just going to sell slowly? Because that's more downward pressure on the market. And this is just like the ETH ICOs in 2017, 2018. Not until most of the market was exhausted from sellers did ETH bottom. So I wouldn't expect it to be any different for BTC so long as there isn't buyers that step in. Cores is another one. Looks like they're reporting holdings maybe every quarter, holding a little bit of BTC, not too much. The big one's definitely Mara. If Mara starts to sell, not great. If any of these DATs start to sell, also not great. Obviously, strategy is the top of the heap as far as anyone is concerned. We can also look at miner reserve. I don't love this metric because it's hard to really know on-chain what's going on. Are they hedging? Are they doing something else outside of their own reporting? This to me looks very bullish because it says miners have sold a lot since 2023. You can also frame this as saying, well, miners still have 1.8 million BTC even here with prices where they're at. So it's one metric to watch into 2026 if you expect some miner selling. Now, you always prefer miners, at least I do, to sell on the way up. Sell into strength. Do not participate in downward pressure because then you become a forced seller and you push prices even further down. So in aggregate, honestly, I think most of them have done okay based on this data, this information, in that they have sold the entire run up since 2023. You can also look at net flows, kind of noisy. I don't think there's too much to read into this at the moment, but another data point to watch is there a bunch of net selling over X period of time. Do we see a capitulation spike if we do break down here on BTC? Do we get a shove from miners pushing this lower? It would be over 2,500 coins in a day from a miner or miners in aggregate. That would be noteworthy. Under that, not really that big of a deal. So as far as the on-chain stuff, to me, those are the most important things. How are the miners doing in aggregate? And who's got BTC to sell and are they selling it? For price charts, we do have an ETF, luckily, to sort of use as an index. That's WGMI. WGMI had a multi-year pitchfork, which it's still sitting inside of, which is also good because this gives you overbought, oversold conditions. This is effectively an oscillator. Ideally, you're buying lows and selling highs. That's generally how most people make money. So at the moment, we are at the top half of this pitchfork. I would classify this price action as either a head and shoulders on WGMI or an inverted cup and handle that has not broken down yet. In any event, not bullish. And if you lose that midpoint, that yellow line, you do expect some discovery below that level. If we measure this as a bearish pattern, 23 to 28 would be a level to think about. You also have some VPVR volume stuff to consider. And you don't really have any volume between here and let's say 29. Really nothing but air on VPVR because this stuff gapped up so quickly after breaking out. So in 2026, we're talking like mid 2026, and I'm sure I'll be back with another video on this when it happens, but I would love to see some sort of multi-month consolidation in the 20s. Now that's the dream. Here's the measured move. Okay, let's get there and then figure it out, right? Way too early for that. That's going to take some time, but it's good to know where this sits just generally as you're looking at all these miners, because some of these miners look way, way worse than this. Some of these miners did nothing over the past 6 months. If you're curious where I'm pulling this pitchfork from, these 3 points. Now, you can do any pitchfork you want. I just like this one because it sort of captures the extremes as well as the midpoint where price sort of oscillated around. And on the cloud, the daily cloud, WGMI also is not giving you a story. It's not giving me a story of, hey, this is a great entry here for a long. The best longs will always be a bullish Kumo breakout, bullish TK cross, bullish cloud. That was back here in July. A lot of people saw the leaders. They quadrupled down on the laggards. Some of that just went nowhere, right? So that's why you got to sort of watch this stuff play out over multiple months, mentally prepare for that. Now, let's say this doesn't break down as far as I think it will, and it just goes sideways. Fine. The next entry is going to be 45-ish in 2026. Totally possible. Also possible that you get these breakouts that go nowhere, right? Welcome to trading, folks. But right now, none of this is bullish on the index WGMI. And if we look at WGMI over BTC, this is also, to me, saying, okay, you're certainly in the ninth inning. You had a great run here since May against BTC. This is something you don't want to miss. It's just been super choppy and noisy over the past couple of years. To catch this, and this is the dream. The dream is multi-month downtrend, multi-month uptrend, sort of chop flat, allowing you to get out in time. So relative to BTC, if you're still holding, you've done great. Could this morph into something that isn't bearish? Absolutely. But do you want to stick around and find out is the question. It just looks a little tired relative to BTC, and IREN, the leader, certainly looks tired. A lot of people have made a lot of money on this thing. A lot of people are still buying this thing. That's fine. I don't care. On trend, unquestionably, this is in bear territory. It doesn't have a bear cloud. It does have a bearish TK cross. It is below the cloud. It is nothing like it was in May and July. It was coming out of a multi-month consolidation with a breakout. You're not seeing that here. And this may go nowhere, may go sideways, whatever. But I also don't have to buy it. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for exactly what we had back here. And it could be any variation of that where it just doesn't go anywhere and reconsolidates, whatever. That's why best case for me on the trading side is let this stuff sell off. Let it sell off 50%. Fine. Let it then consolidate for 2-3 months. Fine. That's where the trade's going to be, in my opinion. Not whatever this is here. There's a lot of guessing here. There's a lot of, man, I hope the AI CapEx boom isn't over. I hope BTC isn't over. I hope. It just feels a little late stages right now relative to where prices were, relative to where the narrative was. Not saying I'm bearish on AI. It's just like, look, feels a little late. That's all. And IREN relative to BTC, I mean, you tell me what that is. You can let me know in the comments, but it's to me a textbook not bullish chart. It has a specific pattern that I call out all the time, and it's got a bearish TK cross price in the cloud. At the bare minimum, you want to wait for this thing to resolve. Like, does it break down? Maybe, maybe not. Does it get a higher high? Again, re-entry conditions are obvious up here. But this is why you sort of want to pay attention to maybe 5 of these at max. You can probably get away with paying attention to 3 of these. Over multiple months, watch this stuff evolve. If you're watching this against BTC, if you're watching it against the index or USD, you're not going to miss something like this after multiple months. You're not going to miss that. And that's always the goal on the next trade, the next setup, which isn't today. Bitfarm is another one. This is one I actually traded, called it out on the channel. A lot of people did really well on this one. Got in around $1.15 or something, and just got lucky that it, as a company, pivoted to AI or whatever, right? Or the market got around to trading it because the market assumed it was a laggard and it's going to act like IREN, whatever. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what happened. But at this point, again, you tell me what this looks like. Does this look bullish to you? No, it does not. And that's okay. Not everything's going to be bullish all the time. Not everything's going to have a trade every day. The goal is to not miss July, August, September again. And that was, again, after a multi-month downtrend. That's why these are worth revisiting. I think at this point, at least once a month, just checking in, right? Hey, how you doing? Have you consolidated yet? Have you sold off? Have you gone back to $1 in this case? But certainly not a bullish chart. Cores I had some hopes for. Had a little bit of a cup and handle. Broke out, but then gave it all back. Hasn't really gone anywhere. Again, this is not bullish. You do not want this stuff getting back underneath the cloud on the daily or returning to the breakout level and then going nowhere. The next entry would be 1819 in 2026 if we see it. I just don't see anything here. Even if we go to 30 tomorrow, to me, there's no reason whatsoever to trade this stuff. And you could say that about any chart that we're looking at on the mining side. None of this stuff looks good. And honestly, nor should it, because it was up. What percentage is this, right? I mean, Bitfarms was up a stupid percent. IREN, stupid percent. And WGMI did very, very well. 20 to 60, right? I mean, what else do you want? Trees don't grow to the sky. CleanSpark is, at this point in like the Mara category, it needs a change of scenery, a change of management, a change of strategy, something. It hasn't really gone anywhere since 2018. Failed to break out even this cycle. And maybe next cycle's the cycle, maybe 2027. But I wouldn't want to sit in this. I would want to wait for higher highs. You could say, okay, maybe this whole thing is a cup and handle. Fine. I don't have to sit on it. And at 14, I can wait till 20. And if you look at it on the daily, it's already down 60%. And it's bounced since then, right? But this is not generally something that I want to be dealing with, is a 60% down move when everything else is doing seemingly okay. I forget if this was some stock debt thing. I don't remember, but it's worth just checking it out. Does this look like IREN or Bitfarms or any of the other ones that have done really, really well? No, it doesn't have a history of that outside of 23 and 24, and then maybe 2020 when everything did well. So it's going to need something because money's probably going to go elsewhere looking at this chart at the moment. BitDeer, another one, just, right, what does it say? Complete bear territory, held highs for half a day. Wolf is probably the only one right now that doesn't look complete garbage, okay? You have the potential for an inverted head and shoulders up here. I don't know why TeraWolf specifically looks like this. I'm sure there's some sort of like data contract or something, but it has been able to hold on to its highs where almost nothing else has been able to hold on to its highs. And this is coming from a level of 5. It's basically a 3x, 4x, whatever, since July still. So this, if I'm trading anything, this is what I want it to look like. Clear outperformance relative to the index, WGMI, relative to its peers, even relative to the leaders, IREN. Whatever they're doing here, they're doing something right. And again, I like this as a breakout trade. I like this at 16. I don't like it at 14, setting up for a bullish TK recross price above cloud, where everything else looks ready to break down. Cypher's another one. Diamond top, head and shoulders, at least today. So my expectation is not bullish things. It is chop or down. Wait for the bullish TK recross price above cloud. Hot, same deal. Nothing to say. And a lot of these, again, they're up from 10 to 50, right? In 6 months, 8 months. Maybe give them a minute. Hive, I don't know what percentage that is. Probably 60% or more down. Not in bull territory. The time to ride the wave was August. Clearly. The cloud told you that. Not here. I think it's, even though it's possibly to be perceived as oversold, trend is not on your side. And maybe this whole thing is just the head and shoulders. Riot, same deal. Chop, nothing. Absolutely nothing. BTBT, same deal. Very clear, obvious level at 450. Until then, not for me. And then Mara, same deal. 25. Until it's above 25, I don't really care. I don't want to buy lows. I don't want to buy chop. I don't want to sit in this thing and hope for the best. So the good news is almost everything looks completely awful. And that's a lot better than it sounds, because there's no like wishy-washy, oh man, we're at some sort of point in the trend where do I get in? Do I wait? What size? Blah, blah, blah. No, everything looks bad. It's easy. There's really nothing to do outside of Wolf, in my opinion. And you're probably going to see previous leaders lead again. That's the first thing. Or you're going to see new pivoters lead because they hadn't done anything over the past 8 months. I would watch WGMI. I would watch your favorite 3 or 4 miners over the next couple months, but really not seeing anything here. And I'd be even hesitant to jump into Wolf unless you really know what you're getting into, maybe on the fundamental business side. Like why is this one doing so well? Is it a Microsoft contract? Is it a Amazon like what is it, right? You can tell me in the comments, but I hope this was helpful. That's all I got for this one. Give me a like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.